Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्कपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ओम नमस्ते once again everyone. Namaskar.
Namaste Guruji.
Namaste. I think
Hari
it's
Om.
not working, so I'll discard this. Hari Om, Hari Om.
Namaskaram. Hari Om.
Namaskaram. कर्मण्य कर्म यः पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्म यः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु स युक्तः कृष्ण कर्म कृत्. Oh, we completed the discussion on this seemingly complicated shloka in the last class. This shloka reveals the secret of how a jnani is successful in remaining ever happy. The solution is available to us also, but we are blind to it due to our ignorance. And as requested by some of you, and also promised by me in the last class, I will first deal with the important messages that this shloka wants to convey for a spiritual seeker. And I hope those who requested me in last class are all present today. See, we have to start to understand this shloka. We have to start, as they say, right in the beginning rather. There can be no dispute on the fact that every one of us, in all jivas, are looking for happiness always, and not temporary happiness, but permanent happiness. The whole Vedanta analysis is all about how to become happy always. How to avoid even an iota of sorrow. That is the whole purpose of Vedanta. In fact, whole purpose of Vedas, I will say, even Karma Kanda, leads you through artha kama pursuits only because they provide a temporary happiness. Then of course, once you cross through that, come to Vedanta, that gives you the solution for how to be permanently happy. Therefore, to understand this sloka, we need to start with the genesis of what causes unhappiness. If we are able to gain that knowledge and are able to transform our attitude and our approach to life, we will be able to crack the puzzle. As we have often seen, the whole issue of unhappiness starts with our desires. Fulfilled desires make us happy, but unfulfilled desires lead to unhappiness. But that does not mean that we should not have any desires. In fact, there can be no jiva without desires. We have already seen prayojanam anuddishya mandopi na pravartate. Without some purpose, even a dim-witted person will not undertake any task. And any action, the genesis of an action, source of an action is a desire. Therefore, not having desires is not a natural state. It is not possible. We must not even consider that as a possibility. That's why when Nishkama Karma and all we talk about, we have to be very clear about this. It is not about not having desires. It is about managing the desires. So we all have desires. Then what happens? This is the starting point. Next stage is to fulfill those desires, we engage in action. Without some kind of action, the desires cannot be fulfilled. And when we engage in action with certain expectations, the results are not in our control. All that we have already seen in the second chapter itself, when we discuss karmanyevadikaraste. Action is under our control, but the results of the action, we have no control over them. As Pujya Swamiji says, the results could be as expected, more than expected, less than expected, and even opposite to what was expected. So all four possibilities are there. If the results are as expected or more than expected, there will be no problem, isn't it? Because expected results we get, we're happy. More than expected we get results, we'll be more than happy rather. But if it is less than expected or opposite to our expectations, unhappiness follows. And it is that unhappiness the scriptures are trying to tackle. Statistically, we don't know, but at least probability, 50% of your desires, there's a probability they will not be fulfilled or they will not be fulfilled as expected. So again, that follows that 50% of the time you will be unhappy. Shastra is trying to tackle that 50% of the time. If somebody is happy, he is not going to be complaining, isn't it? Complaint comes, sorrow comes, which affects the health, everything, because of that unhappiness which stems from unfulfilled desires or lower than expected results or even opposite results, opposite to our expectations. And for tackling that, what does Shastra do? Shastra, the scriptures analyze the nature of action, throws up certain questions. To whom does the action belong to? For example, can I attribute to myself the responsibility for the action which is to be done by someone else. You may have expectations, but the action for meeting those expectations is not under your control. For example, your own children, you may have certain expectation. Okay, my son will become a big engineer, or my daughter will become a doctor. All those expectations you may have. But it is not necessary for your son or a daughter to do all the actions which are required for him to become an engineer or for the daughter to become a doctor. That is not under your control. So even when you are looking at action, there are two types of action. One action which is related to your desires, your expectations, which is under your control. There are a set of actions which are also related to your desires, but they are not under your control. So again, without going too deep into it, the point I'm trying to make is, when the action is not under your control, in such a situation, who should be held responsible if the results of action are not as per your expectations? Because responsibility for action and the results of action are directly linked. So if your children are responsible for a certain action, which you expect those actions to be done, and there are results which give you unhappiness, whom should you hold responsible? That's a question. Because the moment we say I am responsible, then the sorrow also you will have to own up. Unhappiness you will have to own up. Therefore, it becomes very important to examine with what attitude we actually look at every action. Every single action, what is my attitude? I need to understand this. These are all very deep, thinking is required for this. And as we have already discussed, a jiva consists of two equally important parts, or in fact, I would say two entities, which we call Atma and Anatma. They are distinct from each other. Anatma comprises of the body, mind, sense complex, and Atma is consciousness, which continuously blesses the Anatma, because of which the Anatma is able to carry out the transactions with the world. We have also seen that this Atma itself is akarta, a non-doer. It does not do any action. Rather, it cannot do any action given its nature. It is all-pervading. In the last class we saw, for doing any action, you require some space. There is a change involved. But when Atma is all-pervading, there is no space for Atma to engage in any action. So Atma is akarta. Body, mind, sense complex, we take it to be the karta. And an understanding of the important difference between Atma and Anatma is very important for us to examine to whom the action belongs to, and also to understand what Krishna is trying to convey through this shloka. And if this is not understood and kept in mind while analyzing this shloka, then there won't be any point in proceeding further. But unless we understand this aspect, next shlokas and all will not make it will not convey any meaning rather. Therefore, the first lesson that Krishna wants to emphasize in this verse is that Atma, the awareness principle, the consciousness principle, is ever actionless. And what is that Atma? Myself, my real self, the higher I. It is ever free from karma. Then the second lesson that Krishna wants to emphasize is that the body-mind-sense complex, which is otherwise called ahankara or ego, can never be free from action because it is a finite entity, always on the lookout for becoming infinite. So, Atma cannot do action. Ahankara or the anatma or the body-mind-sense complex can never be free from action. And the third point that he wants to highlight is that even when it appears to be doing no action, that is the body-mind-sense complex or the anatma, if it appears to be doing no action at the surface level, action is going on at the subtle level also, and also not only action is actually going on at the subtle level. We saw the example of a wall, atoms, and all that, neutrons, etc. But additionally, even when the anatma appears to be doing no action, it contains the potential for future action. For example, in deep sleep state, the body, mind, sense complex are not doing any action. That does not mean that they are actionless. That is what Krishna wants to emphasize, that the body, mind, sense complex contains potential for future action, because when you wake up, you start getting into action rather. Right from brushing your teeth is all action only. So these 3 points Krishna wants to emphasize through this sloka for us to understand. And therefore, the conclusion is that the body, mind, sense complex, the anatma, is ever engaged in actual action or potential action. And the consciousness, the atma, is never engaged in action. Now, to answer the question, to whom does the action belong? It is clear that it belongs to the body, mind, sense complex, because Atma is actionless, it cannot do any action. Therefore, what happens? When we identify ourselves with the body, mind, sense complex, when we identify ourselves with our ahankara, we become bound by all actions. We own up all the actions as my action. On the contrary, if we identify ourselves with consciousness or Atma, which is akarta, a non-doer, then that owning up of all actions by me will not occur, because I know I cannot do any action. Action is being done at my body, mind level complex, which is not me. And if that identification gets firmly established, what happens? One becomes free from all the consequences of the action, like unhappiness, even punya, papa, etc. Because punya, papa also directly attached to the karmas that we do. Therefore, what Krishna is saying is, who is a jnani? Karmani akarma yaha pashyet. Akarma yaha pashyet. The one who sees the actionless of the Atma, the permanent peace of the Atma, when karmani, even when there are actions at the anatma level, he is a wise man. So he does not find peace by stopping the action, but he discovers peace in spite of the action. That is the secret for a jnani's eternal happiness. So Krishna's advice is discovering the leisure amidst action, discovering leisure in spite of the action, is what one needs to train oneself for. And therefore, a jnani has got this Atma Ananda available all the time. It's like a big reservoir he owns. He can dip into it at any time. He doesn't need anybody's permission. He doesn't need anything for him to dip into that Atma Ananda. And therefore, Krishna says, Saha Buddhiman. Such a person is a wise person. Manushyeshu, among all human beings. Saha Yuktaha, he is called a real yogi. And Krishna Karmakrit, he is a person of fulfillment. Therefore, he or she enjoys total fulfillment at all times. He enjoys happiness at all times. This is the summary of the sloka, which I promised that I will say. If this is not understood, which I have tried to put it in very simple terms, then it will be very difficult to explain it further rather. But having said that, if there are still questions, we can discuss them during satsang today. Okay. So now we'll go to the next sloka. Yasya sarve samarambah kama sankalpa varjitah jnanagnidagda karmanam tamahuf panditam buddhah. He whose actions are all free from desires and fancies, and whose actions are burnt by the fire of knowledge, sages call him wise. This is the short meaning of the sloka. We have already seen the meaning, Anvaya of the sloka in the last class, so I will not repeat them. You can refer to either your notes or the video of the last class. And as I told you earlier also, these verses, the 19 to 24, verse 19 to 24, they are a commentary on the previous verse, which is a key verse. So 19 to 24 is a commentary on the 18th verse. So the basic question is, once a jnani has discovered Purnatvam, will there be a motive for him to do any work? I am already fulfilled. I don't need to do anything more. Because we have seen just now that activities are born out of desires and desires are born out of dissatisfaction. Therefore, the dissatisfaction becomes the motive force for people to engage in action. But if all the people are going to be satisfied with themselves, everybody is Purnaha, or they take themselves to be fulfilled, then there will be no motive for work for anybody, isn't it? In fact, I don't know whether it is still persisting. I know that some time ago, a few years ago, there were people who used to say that India was a backward country backward society because of this philosophy of contentment. They used to say that you must have desires. You must have dissatisfaction, and that should be your drive. Then only you will have a motive, the drive. Which means that you should be eternally discontented to go on reaching, next stage, like that. This is the Western philosophy. What great philosophy. Whereas we are talking about being eternally happy, their philosophy is that you should be eternally unhappy. Only then you will work. You will work further, and therefore, the philosophy of discontentment alone leads to work and accomplishment. This is their philosophy. Contentment means, Purnatvam means, satisfaction means, one will work at all. This is the misconception people have. But what Krishna wants to say is that a person can be contented and still can continue to work. Unfortunately, the Western society is so personalized, so individualized. I and me only we see. It has come to a level they don't even see beyond oneself, even to the family. Many cases are there. What all I do is only for myself. I want to be happy. So I keep on doing things, not knowing that happiness does not lie in all those things. In fact, true service, true action, true work comes only when there is fullness. And a person's contribution with fullness will be immensely greater because he does not have any personal axe to grind. Otherwise, what happens? Whatever activity I undertake, there will be some element of selfishness because I want to get something out of it. But Krishna says, a jnani alone can contribute with contentment. We come back to the same question. If jnani has contentment, then what will be the driving force for him to undertake any work? Our scriptures say the driving force will be lokakshemam, compassion. The greatness of wisdom is that the person becomes wiser the more he identifies with the world. His mind becomes very broad. Ignorance makes my mind smaller and selfish. All the time I am bothered about me or my family. But in the case of a jnani, because of his universal identification, there is universal compassion, which is his nature. In fact, many people say, oh, jnani is showing a lot of compassion. It's a wrong statement. Compassion is his very nature. He does not need to do any effort to show compassion. Spontaneously, it comes to him. It's just like a mother has got an instinctive love for the child, isn't it? Even animals, a tiger loves its baby and fiercely protects it. A tiger will attack anybody who comes near that baby. And it is not born out of any will or anything. It is instinctive. It is not a thought, action resulting out of a thought. It's instinctive. It's a nature driven. Therefore, the scriptures give the example of Agni. Just as the heat cannot be separated from fire, just as light cannot be separated from the sun, similarly, compassion cannot be separated from a jnani. It becomes the intrinsic nature of a jnani. That is why Adi Shankara in Viveka Chudamani, while actually describing the qualities of a teacher, he says, Ahetuka Daya Sindhu, the one who has compassion without any motive, without any expectations in return. He does whatever he can do according to the need of the situation and according to the resources that he has. Many people ask this question, oh, now I have retired, what should I do? This person all along 40, 50 years has been working in a company or in some setup, earning some money. Now the time has come for him to hang his boots. He doesn't know what to do because he has not done anything else. And I tell people it's not a very difficult thing. Just look around. There are so many people require so much of help. So many forms of help. Engage yourself in that. The satisfaction, the happiness, the contentment you will get out of that service, that seva, something unparalleled rather. You can't get it out of any other type of activity. And there are people who do it. In fact, we don't need to even think of all those things. Just observe some people who are engaged in these selfless activities. I know of a case of a person who used to go to a temple every day. And then he'll collect the vibhuti and kumkum prasad. And he will go to a hospital. And there he will visit each patient, put this mark of kumkum and vibhuti, and say, I am praying for you to get better soon. I don't know what you are suffering from. But my prayer is that you become better. I have brought the blessings of Bhagavan from the temple for you. Such a lovely kind of an action. You don't need to do anything else. Just do this. Can't you do that? So much of fulfillment and compassion you are showing to the people around. They are suffering. Everybody who is in the hospital always thinks of only one thing. When am I going to get out of this place? Get out means not otherwise. Get out means get well and get out. As I said, like a mother, she does whatever the child needs. If the child wants to play with the mother, she plays. Whether she wants to play or not, she will spend time playing with the child. Because the child needs it. If the child wants food, she will give that. And it is or not, okay, this is, it all comes out of compassion. The love, which gets crystallized into appropriate action. And we have already seen the expression of this compassion on part of Bhagavan in the 3rd chapter, isn't it? While discussing about Bhagavan's avatara. What is the motive of Bhagavan's avatara? He himself says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Again, he does not say, I want to take avatara so that people will come and they will, fall at my feet. They will offer all these things, different prasadas and all. I'll be garlanded. They will celebrate Ramanavami, Janmashtami and all. He doesn't say that. He says 3 things. Paritranaya sadhuna, vinashaya cha dushkritam. By that what happens? Dharma samsthapam takes place. A re-establishment for dharma. For that he says, I take birth every yuga, every period. So according to the needs of a society, Bhagavan takes the form. Similarly, a Jnani is like Bhagavan, doing whatever is required according to the surrounding, according to the circumstances, according to his own capacity, and therefore he says Samarambha. A Jnani is full of undertaking, full of action. A Jnani is as active, in fact, more active sometimes than a Ajnani is. Now, if a Jnani is also active and Ajnani is also active, what is the difference? Krishna says, Kama Sankalpa Varjita hai. Varjita hai, devoid of. A Jnani's activity is not caused by a sense of limitation, not caused by discontentment, not caused by smallness, not caused by a lack in his mind, not caused by a sense of loneliness, not caused by a sense of limitation. And that's what he said in the 3rd chapter also. Naiva tasya kritenartha na kriteneha kaschana. Without any activity also, a Jnani is always full, purnaha. Therefore, finitude is not the force behind him. Therefore, he is kamavarjita hai, free from desires. Desires mean desires to fulfill himself. kama varjita hai. And because he is kama varjita hai, and therefore only he is kama sankalpa varjita hai also. He is free from all kinds of sankalpa, all kinds of what we can say, the self-promise he does, all kinds of future projections. Jnani is totally free. And that is why Ajnani is constantly projecting something for the future. We always look for a bright future. Why? Because I am not comfortable with myself in the present circumstances. I am not at home with myself. Therefore, I picturize myself in the future with a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a house, a car, a particular dress, or even with some particular qualification. I feel that if I am a postgraduate, I do a doctorate, then I will be better. There's no harm. I am not saying one should not do it. One should do it with a sense of fulfillment. That's what I should do. Not from a sense of limitation. As Swami Dayananda Saraswati beautifully says, if I look at the future I, if I look at the ideal I, and I compare it with the actual I obtaining at present, I perceive that there is a big gulf between ideal I and the actual I. The actual I is miserable, not happy, and therefore I want to quickly become that ideal I. But that does not come easily. Therefore, there is a restlessness, there is tension, there is anxiety. The restlessness is there because I am not happy with the present I. I am not contented with the present I. Therefore, all dreaming, building castles in the air, etc., they are all expressions of dissatisfied I. And that's why Swamiji says, when I cannot accept myself, I have rejected myself. And when I cannot accept myself, I cannot accept the world also. I find fault with every person, every job, every setup, every house, whatever it is. We seldom realize that the problem is not with the world. Self-rejection expresses in the form of world rejection. Self-acceptance expresses in the form of world acceptance. And therefore, Swamiji says very beautifully that a jnani is at home with himself as he is, and therefore at home with the world also as it is. Therefore, no more dreaming, no more projection, no more trying to change the world. Jnani lives in the present day. I am fine as I am. I enjoy doing whatever I can do and whatever I have to do also. And therefore, what happens? A jnani does not travel from unhappiness to happiness. A jnani's travel is from happiness to happiness to happiness only. What a beautiful state of mind, isn't it? Happily he succeeds. Happily he fails also. Happily he gets things done. Happily he is unable to get things done also rather. His happiness doesn't undergo any change irrespective of what the results his action brings. Jnani realizes that there is no connection between the setup and Purnatva. Whatever setup we are in, our present setup, that belongs to a lower level, the egoistic level. Purnatvam belongs to a higher level. To put it in the Upanishadic language, the setup belongs to Vyavaharika Satta. Purnatvam belongs to Paramarthika Satta. And a jnani is wise enough not to mix up the order of reality. Therefore, no more dreamings. Kama sankalpa varjita hai. Then he says, Jnanagni Dagda Karmanam. Another interesting happens. And what is that? When a person identifies himself in the lower I, to begin with, karmas or actions do not produce unhappiness or even punya papa. We must carefully understand this. When I am identifying with my body, mind, sense complex, that itself does not generate punya papam or unhappiness. Only when I identify myself with ahankara, with my ego, when there is a sankalpa, then only it produces unhappiness, punya papam, etc. And that's what Krishna said in the 3rd chapter. Ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Only when we identify ourselves with the ego and take ourselves to be a karta, a doer, all these problems follow. These adverse consequences follow. Since a jnani does not have a crystallized ego, it does not produce unhappiness, punya, papam, etc. It does not produce samsara. Tattvabodha students can recall, we saw there, jnani does not generate agami karma. Because his ego is totally resolved, he doesn't identify himself with the actions that he does. He does not produce any agami karma. Fresh punya papam he does not produce at all. So from the date of that jnanam, when he gains that jnanam, whatever action the jnani does, he does not attract punya papa. Whereas an ajnani till the end will continue to attract punya papa. And that is why he says, Adi Shankara says, Dagda Karmanam, not Adi Shankara, sir, Krishna says, Dagda Karmanam, all his karmas, agami karmas, even his sanchita karmas, rather. Prarabdha karma is not destroyed. Sanchita karma and agami karmas are destroyed there itself as though burned by fire. In the Shastra, they give the example of a roasted seed. When you look at, roasted seed, for example, many people earlier, they used to roast the seed of coffee seeds, and then powder it, make fresh coffee. When you roast that seed, there are some changes which take place. If you look at it, it will look like the other seed only. You can touch it, you can handle it, everything you can do, except one thing you cannot do. You cannot sow the seed for it to germinate. A roasted seed, if sowed, will not germinate. So, except germination, everything else seems to be common. So similarly, Jnani's ahankara is supposed to be like a roasted seed. This ahankara has got functional existence. If you ask a Jnani, who are you? He's not going to say, I am Satchidananda, Atma, and things like that and all. He will give his biography as we all give. The Jnani will say, I am so and so Ananda, so and so Saraswati, Ananda Saraswati. Everything he will say. His description, he will be as per the ahankara only. But the difference is, the ahankara does not have real existence. It has got only functional existence. Therefore, the functional ahankara is there, but it will not germinate into further samsara. Therefore, it is roasted, and for roasting, which fire you use? Normal seed for roasting, we will use the local fire. But for roasting the ahankara, you require a different type of fire. The fire of jnanam, jnana agnihi, fire of knowledge, fire of wisdom you require. And by the fire of wisdom, the Jnani burns down all his Agami karma and also the Sanchita karma. And then he says, Tam Panditam Ahuhu. Such a person, such a Jnani is called a Pandita, Pandita, or plural Pandita. Panditam Pandita. The word Panda means self-knowledge. Itaha means endowed with. So Panda plus Itaha, Pandita hai, endowed with self-knowledge. And here, interestingly, Krishna uses the word Pandita hai just to remind us or remind Arjuna of the first verse of his teaching. I hope you all remember the first verse, chapter 2, verse number 11. Ashocya nannashocastvam pragyavadanscha bhashase gatasu nagatasuncha na anushocanti pandita. That pandita hai Krishna is referring to here and defining here. Who is that pandita hai? Who are those pandita hai? Who has roasted his ahankara and has made it incapable of producing grief, incapable of producing unhappiness. Na anushocanti roasted ahankara. The roasted ahankara incapable of producing grief. A roasted ahankara produces healthy actions. Actions which are directed towards lokakshemam. So, tam panditaha ahuhu. Who are the people who say they are the Jnanis? Buddha hai. Buddha hai means only the wise people can give such a title. Suppose we have to choose a Nobel Prize winner for physics. In the panel, who should be there? To recognize a physicist, their panel must consist of physicists alone, isn't it? You cannot have a Carnatic music expert in that panel. You can put a Carnatic music expert in a panel which is meant to choose another Carnatic music expert. Similarly, a Jnani is to be chosen by whom? Only Buddha hai. Only wise people can recognize another person. And such wise person can call him, only a wise person call him a Pandita hai. Only one Jnani knows what is Jnanam and he can recognize that Jnanam in another Jnani. We all know what is Jnanam. We may probably even recognize it in people, in Jnanis, rather put it the other way. We can recognize Jnanis, but we do not know what is that Jnanam that we are referring to. Whereas a Jnani knows what is Jnanam, he can recognize another Jnani also. That is why Krishna says Buddha hai. Now, the moot question is, what is Krishna trying to emphasize through this shloka and also a couple of previous shlokas? Where he is highlighting the difference between karma, kartritvam, and akarma and akartritvam. Why is knowing this difference very important? And another question follows, why is knowing the connection of this with Atma, Anatma, Viveka important? We will find the answers in the next few slokas rather. We will read the next sloka number 20, 4th chapter. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nitya tripto nirashraya karmanya pravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. The anvaya of the sloka is nitya triptaha Nirashrayah tyaktva karmaphala asangam sah na eva karoti kinchit api abhipravrittah karmani. Nityatriptah, remaining ever satisfied. Nirashrayah, and independent. Tyaktva karma phala asangam, renouncing attachment toward the result of action. Asakti means attachment. So asangam means, tyaktva asangam means renouncing the attachment. Towards what? Karma phalam, result of action. Sahana eva karoti, he never performs. Kinchit, any action. Api, abhipravritta, though very much engaged, karmani, in action. Same idea. Now, as I said, this is the commentary on the 18th verse where he says, he said, karmani, karmanya akarma yaf pashyet. Same thing he is now explaining here in this sloka. So, remaining ever satisfied and independent and renouncing the attachment towards the results of action, a jnani never performs any action, though very much engaged in action. Again, a contradictory, statement it will appear. So, in the earlier verse, Krishna pointed out that a jnani is free from kama and sankalpa. And as he said in the second chapter, jnani is free from grief, na anushochanti. In short, a jnani is a free person, jnani is a liberated person. We should recall here the beautiful example which Swami Paramarthananda has used. Absolutely brilliant example. Remember the example of difference between thermometer and thermostat, which I spoke of in the last class, or maybe one of the previous classes. What is the difference between thermometer and thermostat? A thermometer is the one which goes up and down the temperature, shows the temperature, which is determined by the surroundings. A thermometer is a slave of the surrounding. It is influenced by the surrounding. And when the temperature shoots up, the mercury shoots up. When the temperature comes down, that also comes down. This is what an ajnani does. Whereas, what about the thermostat? It is not controlled by the surrounding. On the contrary, a thermostat controls the surrounding. In the case of a jnani, he is not overwhelmed by the situation. He keeps doing whatever he can do to change or improve the situation. Therefore, in one is a slave of the setup. In another, one is the master of the setup. And what makes you master is only jnana, knowledge, self-knowledge. Now, Krishna wants to point out that a person can gain jnanam, whatever be his status in life. It does not depend upon the lifestyle that one has. Ajnanam, ignorance is the cause of bondage, and jnanam is the cause of liberation. The setup has got nothing to do with the bondage or liberation. Therefore, if a person is a jnani, he is liberated even when he is amidst the society. On the other hand, if a person is ajnani, he is going to be miserable even when he is in the best of ashramam, either in Badrinath or Rishikesh, etc. So the ashram or griham or setup does not determine whether you are a samsari or you are a jnani. Only two things, ignorance and knowledge, are the only two determining factors. Therefore, the setup does not determine your ashrama. Whether you are a brahmachari, whether you are a sannyasi, or whether you are a grihastha, whether you are a vanaprasthi, that does not determine whether you are a jnani or you are an ajnani. Ashrama does not decide. Your Varna does not decide. You may be a Brahmana by birth, Jati Brahmana, even Karma Brahmana or Guna Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, anything. And this Shankaracharya beautifully points out in another lovely text he has written, Manisha Panchakam. Chandalostu Satu Bijostu Guru Rityesha Manisha Mama, he says. Even a Chandala, a very low caste person, right? Who normally does, he lives in a cremation ground, does all those impure things, to do with dead body and all, a Chandala. He is a Jivan Mukta. He can be a universal guru if he has wisdom. Just because somebody is a Brahmin, so you should be a Jnani. If he's a Chandala, is a Jnani and all, doesn't apply here at all. Even if he is the greatest Brahmin, if he is a Ajnani, he is a Samsari only. Therefore, Varna does not matter, Ashrama does not matter. One may be a male or female, does not matter. Profession does not matter. Nationality does not matter. What matters is whether you have knowledge or not, whether you are wise or otherwise. And therefore, here Krishna wants to describe two types of jnanis in these verses. One is a grihastha jnani, to prove clearly that householders can happily become jnanis. So one does not need to feel guilty that, oh, I am a householder, I am a grihastha, I've got so many responsibilities. All these jnanis, these wise men, you see, they are all sannyasis. Because, some people create that impression. If you want to become a jnani, you have to become a sannyasi. This is what is being taught by many acharyas, which is totally wrong. Some people say sannyasis are superior, householders means you are inferior. In fact, I am told that some places, the sannyasis are given an advice, never mingle with grihastha, because there is a risk that you will also get attached to samsara, as if it is some corona or something like that it will spread. All these kind of funny ideas people have got. So Krishna wants to say ashrama does not make a person inferior or superior. Therefore, a grihastha can be happily hopeful of getting moksha while living in grihastha ashrama itself. And therefore, Krishna talks about the grihastha jnani in this and verses 22, 23 and 24. So 4 verses he talks about a grihastha jnani, who with all his involvement, his responsibilities, duties, his liabilities, etc., can still become a jnani. With all these and more, the grihastha can be a jnani, he can attain moksha. And Krishna wants to talk about a sannyasi jnani also. Otherwise, perhaps he feels the sannyasis may feel left out. Oh, Krishna is trying to downplay our role in the society. So he talks about sannyasi jnani also in the verse number 21. Next verse. So in verse 21, he talks about sannyasi jnani. In verse 20, 22, 23, 24, he talks about grihastha jnani. So this verse which we are seeing is about a grihastha jnani. What type of grihastha he is? Krishna says, karmani abhipravritta. So as a grihastha, naturally he has got a setup, part of the family, part of the society, part of the community. He does Panchamahayagya, he has to do social responsibilities are there. He has to attend weddings, he has to go to many houses during Navaratri and collect all these chundal and all these things. He has to celebrate Diwali and regale the children. Children have to be educated, they have to be settled. By the time the children are settled, they are married and grandchildren are there to be taken care of. All kinds of things are there. Therefore, a grihastha has to be extremely active. So this grihastha who wants to become a jnani also is abhipravrittaha. Pravrittaha means active. Abhipravrittaha means extremely active. But what is the difference between an ordinary grihastha and a jnani grihastha? Krishna explains in this sloka. We will see that in the next class. Okay, I'll stop here. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Guruji.
Thank you very much, Guruji. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Hari
much.
Om. Thank
Guruji,
you very much. Guruji.
are you by any chance in Singapore or somewhere?
No. I am in the basement of my daughter's house in US because there is a lot of guests at home. So
Because when I see the clock, it says
noise upstairs.
9:30.
Sorry?
No, it says 9:30, so I thought probably you're in
9:30 in US
Singapore,
time,
2.5 hours different.
US, Atlanta, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, US,
No,
US,
Atla.
East Coast.
East Coast. East Coast.
2.5 hours.
Oh,
difference.
okay.
Next
Thank
week
you very
onwards, it
much.
will change. Because the daylight
Okay.
saving time, something they introduce. So 1 hour, it will get advanced. So when it is 6 o'clock in India, it will be 7:30 in the morning here. So I will
It will
have
get further retarded, I think, on October 29th. It is the Sunday. Tomorrow, I think it is getting 29th. It is
29.
getting
No, I thought
adjusted.
sometime first week of November. I'll check the date. You are all not going to be affected.
Mm.
I am going to be affected. So I'll make sure that I am there at 6 o'clock IST in the class. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guruji.
Thank you very much for
Namaskaram.
taking the session.
Thank
once
you.
again. Thank you for
Try to
taking
make it
again.
simple and
Yeah.
short. Yeah.
No, I think that example of thermostat and thermometer is something I think it's beautiful because I recently, Mahaperiva, when there was this thing that he had high fever, and then all the Sishyas went to him. He said, Periva, Nanga doctor couldn't work. He said, Allah, don't do anything, just recite Sahasranama. Krishna. So, which means they say, my thermostat will work, don't worry. And
Correct.
don't give any medicine for this going up and down of this and spoil the thermometer. It's a beautiful example.
That's a
I think
difference.
that
Will we ever think of that? We will not, isn't it?
we will not. We will immediately.
And these
think
are the
only-
lessons we have to learn from all these great people, whether it is Periyava or whether it is Swami Paramathananda or Swami Dayan Sasta, all these great people, we have to observe them and then learn these lessons and imbibe them. That is why a Guru Sangha, this Satsanga becomes very important for us.
Very good. Very
It's a
good.
beautiful example.
Very good example.
It's a
I
very,
think it
very
is-
simple and very beautiful example. It explains the whole concept in one example.
Very well explained. Action in inaction. Very well explained. Thank you very much.
Hari Om, Hari Om. Yes, Hariji.
Hari Om. Thank you, Khai. Thank you.
Thank you. Hariji has a question. Hands are up. Namaste.
Namaste. Guruji, what is the difference between karma and kriya?
Karma and kriya, no difference. In Sanskrit, kriya is an action, karma is an action. If at all you want to drive a distinction, a kriya can be any type of action.
Yeah.
A karma is an action which has got a certain desire behind it, which can produce punya papa. If at all you want to differ, otherwise basically kriya is karma, karma is kriya. There is no difference in so far the meaning is concerned, simple meaning is concerned. There are two words used for the same thing. Yeah.
I have got 2-3 questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, another question is that we are saying desire, we shouldn't have any desire ridden action. Okay,
Now come again.
whereas
Come again.
desire produces agitation, mental agitation.
Desire, the unfulfilled desire
Yeah,
produces
Yeah.
mental agitation.
desire can never fulfill permanent. It is
It cannot.
always,
Yeah.
it is only temporary, even
Exactly.
if any
Yeah.
desire.
If it is full, one desire is fulfilled, you find happiness, you think that, okay, this desire I fulfilled, I am become happy, so I will have more desires and I will become more happy. That is our thinking rather. Right? But it doesn't happen.
That is a weakness.
That's a weakness. That's a fallacy rather.
Karma is a weakness.
Yeah.
Whereas when we talk about Icha, then we are saying it is Icha Shakti.
Mm.
Whereas Karma is, it is going to lead to fall.
Mm.
Whereas Icha is Shakti and you are going to go up. What
Not
is the difference?
necessarily. It will depend. Icha means a desire, right?
Icha is, we cannot equate Icha with the normal Kama, is it not?
No,
There is
icha could be sakama icha and nishkama icha. Correct.
Is there any difference between Kama and Icha?
Yeah, icha is the what I say, the source from which kama comes. Icha means what? A desire, right?
And Kama?
Kama is a desire
It's
for
also desire.
self-fulfillment. You can have a icha for lokakshemam. You can have a icha for self-fulfillment, for gaining something. Your personal goal. For
Guruji
benefiting your own self, your family, etc.
Is Kama, can we say Kama is more from the emotional side, whereas Icha is from Buddhi, that we are
Icha
using.
is the driving force. That's why we say Shakti. Icha is the power which drives Kama. One of the consequences of Icha is Kama.
Is Icha positive or negative?
Neutral.
It is neutral.
Icha is neutral. There is no jiva without Icha.
Yeah.
Even an animal, it has an Icha. For example, I used to give the example earlier. When you take a cow for grazing, right?
Yeah.
It will go, it has a desire to eat grass, so it will go where the grass is. Or if it is very, very hot, the cow also feels hot, it will go under the shade of a tree. There is a icha there, right?
Yeah.
There is a icha which is given rise to a kama. But of course, for a cow, it is instinctive. It is not a deliberate action it does from the point of view of using its free will. It doesn't have a free will. But what icha is a common element for all jivas. Whereas kama is specific to human beings. Cow cannot have kama. Animals cannot have kama. Human beings only have this kama purushartha. And kama is also not negative, mind you. Veda says that it's a purushartha. You must fulfill your desires, your binding desires, you must fulfill. Only thing what scripture said, don't get entrapped. Don't get shackled by this kama.
Okay.
That is what is important. We have to understand. The weakness is not kama. Weakness is our actually getting shackled or entrapped by the kama, that is the weakness.
The
Kama
kartrutva
per se is
and
not the weakness.
is it the kartrutva and bhoktutva
Yeah, I mean,
bhava?
that is all consequences of that. But how do you get question is, how do you say that you are
Get
getting
entangled?
Means I take myself as the doer.
Yeah.
When I take
And
myself as the doer, I am also assuming the responsibility for the results.
yeah.
And when the results are not in favor of what I expected, I feel unhappy, I feel sad. So that is how the whole, the line of argument develops rather. That does not mean you should not have ichcha. You can have ichcha. All that you need to do is disconnect the what I can say, ownership of the action from yourself. For that, you have to understand that you are not the body, mind, sense complex. There's a body, mind, sense complex are doing what they are supposed to do. I am not responsible for what the body, mind, sense complex do.
I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I have nothing to do with it. There is punya papa coming out of it. Let the body, mind, sense complex take that punya papa. I'm actionless. I cannot in fact do any action. So how can I say that I'm doing the action? That viveka, atma, anatma viveka is the what I could say, the solution, the key for opening up this entire. That's how we have to understand. Step by step, we have to understand.
This has to be repeated.
You have to keep on doing. That's what Nididhyasanam is all about. When you have done your Savanam Mananam, you have to keep, you have to engage in this thought that I am not a doer. I am not a doer.
Yeah.
That is what.
In today's verse, I have one more doubt.
Yeah.
It is in verse 19. Kama Sankalpa Vivarjita.
Yeah.
Meaning
Vivarjita.
Free from desire and expectation.
Free from, it is not free from desires, it is free from binding desires.
Okay. Now, when you are telling Kama Sankalpa Vivarjita, whereas whenever we do puja, the pujari, you have a sankalpa. Without a sankalpa, he will not even start the puja. So, is there any contradiction here when you say that?
Absolutely. Pujari takes you as an agyani. He knows that you want all these things in your life. That is what everybody like you had done.
Yeah.
So he is doing the sankalpa like that. You tell the pujari, I don't want this sankalpa. I'm on the spiritual path. I'm going to become a jnani. Change my sankalpa. Only 3 things I want. Right? Lokakshemam, I want. I want Parameshwara Prityartham. Atma Shuddhi. So you say, the sankalpa is mamopata samasta durdakshaya dwara Sri Parameshwara Prityartham or Atma Shuddhyartham Lokakshemartham Parameshwara Prityartham aham idam pujam karishye. That's all. Change the sankalpa. You tell the priest that I am not interested in all this, what is that called? Putra pautra bahu putra labham, all dhanam dhanyam and all. I'm not interested. I've got all of them, enough what I want. Now my sankalpa is only one thing. That is number 1. Parameshwar Prityartham will have to be there, because if you have a karma yoga attitude, Parameshwar Prityartham comes in. In fact, if you look at the Sandhya Vandana Sankalpam, there is nothing. Sandhya Vandanam, do you say all these things? Dhanam, Dhanyam, Pashum, Bahu, Putrala? You don't say. You only one thing. Parameshwara Prityartham. That's the only thing you say in Sandhya Vandanam. What does that mean? Sandhya Vandanam is a karma which is reflecting the karma yoga attitude of what you should be doing.
This is not for me. This is all for
For
Param-
everybody. I mean, I'm just saying we have to learn to find these kind of technical differences. Your point that all these people, these priests and all come and do all these things, fine. You can even do one more step. I will go. When he's saying all these dhanyam, dhanam, pashum and all, in your mind you say, no, I don't want all these things. You need not even tell it to the priest. You say, I am only looking at two main things. One is Atma Shuddhi and Loka Kshemartha. And Parameshwara Prityartha, many cases, is there in the mantra. That's it. Just these two only. You are only looking for what? At our stage, we want more and more purification of our
Mind.
our mind, right? The same purification we can attain with a karma yoga attitude by performing any Vaidika karma. There are no separate karmas for karma yoga and separate karmas for kama, artha kama purushartha. Same karma you can use for as karma yoga and then gain Atma Shuddhi. So that difference we must be able to understand, ascertain, and through all these talks only we will understand, through guidance of our gurus we will understand this is also a possibility. Let the priest say whatever he wants to say. In my mind, the sankalpa for me is only Atma Shuddhyartham,
Lokaksham.
Atma Shuddhyartham, Loka Kshemartham. Because when I want to become a spiritually enlightened person, I want to become a jnani, the only sankalpa I can have is Loka Kshemartham, as Krishna says. So that if you adopt that methodology, things will become easy. In fact, I have been adopting that methodology for quite some time. I cannot avoid doing all these pujas and things like that and all, being in a family, being a grihastha, I have to do all that. But in my mind, personally, for me, what is important is these two things, Loka Kshemartham and Atma Shuddhyartham. Continuously work on that. And so none question will be, that means that you are not praying for your family, you are not praying for other people and all that kind of a thing. No. When I say Loka Kshemartham, everybody is included in that. I am praying for each and every, even those who the priest does not mention, I am including all the entire world in that Loka Kshemartham. So I don't need to specifically pray for myself. I am also included in the Loka. I don't need to pray separately for each individual entities. Everybody is included. So that is how you have to understand and progress. All these are all mantras, the karma kanda is all mainly for ajnanis. Because they won't understand all these things, I mean, what is the point? You go and tell somebody that purification of mind and antakarana shuddhi and all. They'll say, what antakarana and all that? They won't understand anything. Or even if they have heard some lectures and all, very superficial understanding. They will not go deep into what exactly is the benefit of all these things. That is what it is. Okay. Are you?
But it is very interesting. It is the more we start thinking and contemplating, whatever
what
we are.
Vedanta is. Vedanta is about all reflecting, thinking, contemplating, meditating on certain ideas again and again. Your mind in present stage will reject all these ideas. You have to keep telling the mind 10 times, 20 times, 200 times. This is what the Shastra says. This is what you should do. So then slowly it will absorb. It will start. Okay, I see some sense in that. Like that it will happen. It won't happen overnight.
Yeah.
The classes are meant only for that, to provoke all these thoughts. And self-help. Help yourself to improve. Yeah. Okay.
Uddaret Uddaratman.
Yes, exactly. You have to raise your own self. Krishna himself is saying that, right?
Uddaret Uddaratman.
Good. Thank you. Lataji. Are you there, Lataji? Am I audible?
Yeah, Namaste, Guruji.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste, Guruji. My questions can wait for next class.
Why?
You're with your daughter and grandchildren, and it's already
No.
9:30.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. They are all resigned to their fate that I will be like this only. In any case, yesterday there was a very late, Diwali party went very late night. So they all gone to sleep only at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. So I distance myself because I don't want to disturb them when they are sleeping and all that. So don't worry about that. They are most of them, at least grandchildren, are all sleeping. So don't worry about them. You can go ahead and ask the question in this class itself.
Okay, thank you very much, Guruji. Guruji, one question is pertaining to the last class and one question for today's class. The question about the last class, I hope I'll be able to express my question properly. The tenets of Karma Yoga, if I captured it right, the Ishwararpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi, Samatva Buddhi, Asanga Buddhi, and sorry, I don't remember the four. I'm not getting the fifth one. So are these only for a mumukshu, or are these for everybody? Because if it were to be for everybody, then Mahabharata would not have happened. Whatever happened to them in whatever way, the Pandavas, they should have just accepted it as the Ishvara Prasada Buddhi and then just kept quiet at it. So is it only for the mumukshu, these tenets?
I'll answer your question with a question.
Right.
Suppose you take a person, you have to get up 4 o'clock in the morning, go for some 12 miles running, right? Jogging 12 miles morning. Come home, drink some 3 glasses of milk. You must eat so much eggs, lot of proteins you must take. And then you go to the gym and do all this workout and all that. Is it meant for everybody? Only if that person wants to be a very, athlete or a sports person, he will be given all this advice. Similarly, all these advices are for a mumukshu only, a person who wants to reach that spiritual goal. Otherwise, ordinary people, no point. So the starting point itself is, as we saw in Tattva Bodha also, mumukshutvam is one of the essential qualifications for you to come into Vedanta itself. If you don't have mumukshutvam or moktum ichha, then why are you wasting your time, your guru's time and Shastra's time and effort here? So that is for a mumukshu only, all these things. That's answered your question.
Thank you for answering this question. Okay. And out of today, the one mumukshu on the part of mumukshatvam, and once he becomes a jnani, as you said, his sanchita karma and agami karma will all be burned, and only
Prarabdha karma, you can't do anything.
Prarabdha karma what he has to go through, and he's living only for the local kalyanam. He's not living for himself or anything. So, but does he still get angry? He'll still have desire, because when you're going about your things, doing your things in the world, at some point, this starts in anger or desire might come. So, because that's going to be for the benefit of the society, so that's not going to build up any karma anymore.
See, the answer is, since the prarabdha is there, since he still has to use his body, mind, sense complex, all things related to the body, mind, sense complex, because anger, jealousy, all these things, he is not killing them away. Of course, they will be very subdued. to the extent that there is a purification, there is a Atma Shuddhi is there, or Antakarana Shuddhi is there, right? They will not be as intense as it was earlier when he did not go through this Karma Yoga process. Rather. Having said that, momentarily, even a Jnani can become upset, can become angry. But what happens is, between a Jnani and Ajnani, yeah, Ajnani will become angry. He will, he will not be aware that he is angry, number one. If he is aware he is angry, he will find a justification for that anger, number two. And number three, he will continue to be in the state of anger for a long period of time. Even days together, he will be angry. Between spouses, we have seen this, isn't it? They won't be talking to each other for a few days. Married people will know all these things. So, for Ajnani, this is the situation. When a Jnani becomes angry momentarily, he will immediately realize, oh my God, I shouldn't do it. So he will manage that anger immediately. In fact, he may be angry like this and become normal like this rather. But he can't escape in all circumstances because it is the anger and all is part of an instrument that he is using, the body, mind, sense complex. So we cannot say Jnani means totally, fantastic and never get angry. Normally, what we can say is, in normal circumstances, where an Ajnani will get angry, in the similar, given the same circumstances, a Jnani will not get angry. This is the very common sentence we can say. But there are, in fact, I have seen Pujya Swamiji getting upset on some question, that there was somebody who kept on asking some stupid question to Pujya Swamiji again and again, and he was trying to argue with Pujya Swamiji. I witnessed it. Pujya Swamiji got a little angry. So, but then immediately he called that person and said that don't get upset. When you need more understanding of what I'm trying to say, right? So if you're serious about knowing that, you apply your mind, come to the next class, we'll discuss about this more and all that. So that was a very beautiful lesson for all of us in that. A Jnani can become angry, but he tackles the anger in a totally different manner than what we would do as Ajnanis. So these are all things we must bear it in mind. But having said that,
these types of anger and upset of a Jnani, that will not build up any more karma.
No. Because he has already, karma is because when, I am angry. Jnani knows I am not angry. It is my mind which is angry. So if at all karma comes, let it go to the mind. Right? And once the mind is gone, once I have actually used the Jnanagni for destroying my Sanchita karma and Agami karma, that means what? When my Prarabdha karma finishes in this life, I'm not going to have a rebirth. So in the meantime, let whatever happens to the Sukshma Sharira, let it happen. It is going to perish at the end of this birth. Isn't it? So Jnani becomes indifferent to that. But that does not mean that, he say, okay, I will become angry and all that. And then that doesn't mean that. We can't drive it to the other extreme rather. He's conscious about it because this thing is, I should not hurt anybody. So if by my becoming, momentarily angry, if the other person is hurt because of that, I must immediately repair that. That is the Jnani's approach. It is ahimsa. Not from the point of view of you did a wrong, so I will punish you kind of a thing. No, not that kind of a thing. That's why, when Pujya Swamiji said, called that person and said that, no, see, I'm sorry that I did I sort of retorted in this manner, but I can understand your problem. These are things which are not very easy to understand. You probably require much more sort of, studies and more attending these classes to understand all these things. So immediately, then we realized, okay, even if that happens, This is how you have to tackle it, rather. This is a lesson for us, rather. So,
Can we say, Guruji, that Jnani's anger is for his disciples' benefit?
no,
Whereas
there is no purpose behind the anger. Anger, normally is a very, very reactive emotion.
no, if he is not, say, if a Jnani doesn't get angry, then I will keep on asking the same thing.
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
this is indirectly
Affecting other
Jnani's anger
students.
is going, the Jnani's anger is for my benefit.
That's true.
So that, otherwise, sometime I need a hit,
Yeah.
If the master doesn't hit me,
Correct.
then I will think whatever I am doing is correct.
In fact, when you are mentioning this, I am reminded of another incident which happened with Pujya Swamiji. Somebody asked the very same question. You don't become angry or what? Gyani, you are Gyani, you don't become. So Swamiji said, I will show you whether I become angry or not, like that. So what happened was, in the class, there was one boy, very nice boy, very, this thing. But Swamiji normally, whenever he takes classes, he will repeat a lot of what he has said in the previous class. So normally students will not take any notes, right? Now this boy was sitting just under Swamiji. Swamiji was in the dais. He was sitting just below him. He had a notebook in his hand. And then when Swamiji was talking, this fellow was doing something on the notebook. Nobody knows what, whether he was taking notes or something like that, or he was just doing some doodling and things like that and all. Right? Many students, they have this habit, when the talk is not very interesting or something, you sit and you do some, draw some photos and things like that and all. Then Swamiji, all of a sudden, hey, what's your name? What are you doing? Come here, show me your notebook. Like that, he said. Typically, like any teacher would do, right? In the classroom. This fellow got totally shocked. We all were shocked. Swamiji suddenly flaring up and showing, hey, show me your notebook. You showed. Then he said, don't do these things in my class. Okay? This, either you be attentive or don't attend my class. Like that and all. He told all those things. Then we didn't ask for any explanation because we were all so scared. What has happened? Swamiji is so angry and all that. That day in satsang, Swamiji said, somebody yesterday asked me whether I will get angry or not. Did you all observe what happened this morning? I got angry. So that's the answer. But that does not mean that, that anger was coming out of something. I just wanted to demonstrate that a Jnani can produce anger when he wants also, rather. It is not because anger is under his control. He is not controlled by anger. So in order to, as you rightly said, for some benefit to pass on a bigger message to all the people, a Jnani can feign as if he is angry also. Now, when you are mentioning that incident came to my mind. Typically what will people think, oh, what is this Swamiji getting so angry and things like that? And if he had not explained to us what was the background, he said, somebody yesterday asked me whether you get angry or not. Now you got the answer. Like that, he said. Very interesting, These are all the advantages of being in the Gurukulam. You get so many things, when you are very close with all these Mahatmas. Many of these questions which you have, they get answered on their own, rather. And these are all legitimate questions, rather. I mean, these are not just time pass questions. We have genuine doubts about all these things. Because we have never seen a Mahatma. One opportunity we get to see a Mahatma. So then we have a lot of questions. And in fact, all this stems from a lot of misunderstandings also. A Mahatma is also a human being. So there is always a possibility of certain human frailties there existing in the Mahatma. The only thing is he is aware of that and he has mastered to manage that. That's all. That's the only difference. Anyhow, good you asked that question so I could share these experiences. Thank you.
Thank you
Anybody?
very much, Guruji.
Thank you.
for
Hari
sharing
Om.
it out.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.
Hari Om. So no more questions. Shall we close?
Thank you, Guruji.
Okay, then Hari Om. See you tomorrow. Good.
Hari Om.
Tomorrow, Viveka Chudamani students. Otherwise, next class.